Yes, sir.
Kenya forensic examiners.
Sure.
Okay, let's first of all start with what's a forensic examiner?
Right, and we are starting at a very good point where we need to define, because when I got the poster and I shared it with a few friends of mine, and asked them simply, what are the questions that you'd want me to really represent or even ask? I realized that probably it's even good that we are talking about these at this time, because it then came to my realization that people are still struggling with basic understanding of what forensic is all about. So simply, forensic is application of science to law. So all these science that you know about, chemistry, biology, DNA that we've just talked about, document examination, and the rest. And science, on the other hand, when you fuse them together, most likely what you're going to talk about, you're talking about forensics. So that is simply what forensics is. Then we have examination, which is another very important term to define as we start. That examination is, again, detailed extractions of evidence from a subject matter. Now, this subject matter could be anything. Right now we are talking about the Shakahola, we talk about the Kemsa that I've heard you talk about. We are talking about the humongous figures that Oduol is speaking about in Siaya. All these things, when you fuse them together in a detailed system and extract them using a scientific process, analyze them, and then generate a report, what you probably will come up with is a forensic report, and the process that you are undergoing is an examination. So examination must be done, of course, in a controlled environment. Okay. I think we've all done exams, and at the very first time when I did my exam, I think the first time I interacted with police closer was when I was doing my KCPE. So the presence of the police in itself shows you that this is a controlled environment. It's not an environment where everyone walks in and walks out. And so these are some of the things that we want to talk about, because most of the examinations that we do are not in what we call, or what we would term as, a controlled environment. But more importantly is that when you are addressing forensic examination, is that report that is generated must also be testable. Okay. Admissibility on one hand, how it's accepted in court, and then how it can as well be generated by an independent examiner. Given the steps that you followed, you should all, conclude one result.
So it's something that can stand the tests in court. Must it go to court?
No. Of course, some of the forensic reports are not necessarily consumed in court, but majorly they actually end up in court, and that's why we say forensic is the application of science, all those that we've mentioned, to law. But of course, at some point, an organization would call you just to go and do a forensic audit. This will most likely be conceived by the board. So it's not necessarily that it has to go to court. And again, even if it goes to court, it could be a civil matter, it could be a criminal matter.
So essentially, at the heart of any discussions around the subject of forensics, you are talking about science.
You're talking about science.
And you're talking about scientific methods that have been put at play to determine certain outcomes.
Right.
And you also want to relate it directly to either cases that may be in court or just to everyday human interactions in life.
And that is true. That is how actually we define forensic.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you give me for that definition?
You've done very well.
He did his homework. Yes.
So previously, when you hear about forensics, the initial thought that comes into your head is that then you're only dealing with, bodies. That was it. But then now here, and then we have forensic psychologists today. We have forensic accountants today. So many things. And so this makes sense now, because what we're saying is that you're applying a science to law. You're applying a science then to another field and be able to get the information. So are we saying that you can basically, if you apply this science, you can find out anything about the subject matter if you were looking for it? If you applied forensics to something, you would be able to find a solution. Or if somebody had been there, if something has happened in the audits, in the books, if something has happened by nature of me having touched something, if something has happened by nature of me having had a conversation with somebody, if you go through the forensic process, you will then be able to find an answer if you apply the science?
Absolutely. And that is the gist of the matter, that when we look at forensic and how it actually came, the first people that we talk about are called Alocard. And for those who've done criminologies, you would understand that we have what we call the Alocard's principle. It definitely defines what you've talked about. This is that every time, or rather, wherever there is a crime, there must be something that is left on the scene. And so it is upon your skill, it's upon the systems that you use now to, interrogate what happened. You should definitely get to the result. You should be able to expressly point to the criminal. And these are the matters that we are currently grappling with. So most of the time we ask ourselves, why are we having all these big cases and we don't really get a solution? So it's not the first time we are hearing about KEMSA, for example. It's not the first time. Probably it's not, and I hope it doesn't happen, but the Shakahola kind of a thing.
Sure.
We've had similar, So what would it be that, where are we dropping the ball? It's that probably we are still using the old methods to, try to investigate the cases that we've had all the time. City, I believe you've been here long enough, I and you, we understand that in the early 80s and late 70s, Kenya was one of the countries that were touted as, had best investigators. And so we called people like the Scotland Yard and the rest, and they were trying to, Troon, the Troon Commission and all that. If you interrogate keenly, and try and analyze what they did and the outcome that they came up with, probably you'll not, there are still cases that are still hanging here and there. And it's because, they came into in an environment that they were not quite familiar with.
Right.
Yeah, and so what we're saying right now is that can we probably upgrade and then get to the gist of the matter? Let us, have it, because the world has evolved.
Sure.
We've gone digital. We are not going analog anymore. So most of these things and the crimes that we talk about have now gained their digital equivalent. You're not going probably to have the patapoteas, Eric, the ones that you had on the street, he's your pesa. These people have now evolved and they have, reincarnated on the digital platform. So I'm not talking about betting, or maybe I'm not, but you see, they have reincarnated. So the question is, how well are we equipped to identify, analyze, and successfully convict these cases in court?
So that's the question. How well is Kenya equipped? And so somebody who is then trained and has mastered these things is called what? A forensic scientist? What are they called?
Yes, it's forensic.
A forensic scientist.
Examination, yeah.
Okay,
Forensic scientist,
a forensic examiner.
Or criminologist.
Okay, fantastic. Now, with all of this taken into consideration then, and with all the things that we say, some of which you've listed, Shakahola being one that's, right there, we've seen some of the difficulties or challenges that this particular case is having in identification of people, in identification of processes, to then be able to say what exactly happened. And we know that the commission is not sitting right now because of 1, 2, 3. However, would you say, even with the evolution of some of the things that you speak of, the digital space, people becoming more versed in the intricacies of criminology and crime, is Kenya well equipped to deal then with some of the things that we're talking about?
So if I would probably answer it in terms of rating, I would say we are actually at 4%, or rather 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Yes. We are not there yet. So the kind of picture that probably I want to create, for those who love movies and science fictions, I'll talk or relate it to CSI Miami. You've seen that kind of, while I'm saying that is just for entertainment, it might not be 100% true, but that is where the world is now, headed to. We are at a time where breaking news is first seen on Twitter before it's on Spice FM, for example. We are at a time where people meet on Zoom and Teams. Brands are broken on Facebook before they are on the showroom. And of course, we have less and less traffic on the banking halls because most of these things happen on M-Pesa and the rest. So we also need to upscale our techniques to identify, because criminals, what they do, they leverage on traffic. They've realized that the land has shifted, and so they're also there waiting online to see how they can scam us. They see how they can, of course, deploy all these tactics. So Kenya, as we speak today, we are making those baby steps towards the right direction. But from CSI Miami, if you probably watch this and compare it with where we are, then you can actually give yourself a rating.
So for us to get there, we need to have a good number of trained personnel.
One of the very big challenges that we're facing.
Do we have institutions that train forensic examiners in Kenya?
Yes, we do.
Which ones?
We do. Like, for example, we have KU has a course in forensic. We have Tomboya College has another, has a training on, or has a course on forensic. Then we have another, it's not Karatina, but somewhere around there, Karatina, we also have a university that
Kirinyaga University
that does the same. One big challenge that we face, though, is that we lack, attachment. We need to hold the hands of the trainees once.
Let's start with those institutions.
Yes.
Do they have the requisite facilities to actually train forensic examiners?
That's another challenge, because when we talk about one biggest challenge is inadequate resource. So resource would talk into more about the facilities, the labs themselves, and the personnel, for example, to even train those students from those universities. So that is another great challenge that forensic practice in Kenya is facing.
The idea behind using science stems from an understanding that anything we refer to as scientific can actually be tested and can be proved to be so. It's empirical, meaning it's not guesswork, it's not what I think, it's not what someone else, an independent body, can go and look at the same thing and probably come up with the same results.
Yes.
Now, something comes to mind even as we discuss this. Even if the knowledge is available, there is this small matter within a country that relates directly to the willingness of those in authority to allow the flourishing of such processes, because these processes have very far-reaching consequences. Beyond just the simple thing of, we want to determine how this person died. So the pathologist comes and looks and does whatever science. Or we talk about forensic auditing. You're looking into the books and you're determining. Now at that level you talk about companies, but when you say, for instance, want to audit a country forensically, and you want to look at its spending, you then start stepping on some really raw nerves. Now, smart people would know that when such a science is encouraged, the point at which its logical conclusion may not necessarily be useful to the things that they would like to do. So, my question, do you think that it is a study that would be encouraged, not just given larger government picture, but just larger picture in terms of, say, for instance, government departments? Think of any ministry in this country, that's where I would start. Think of any county in this country. If such scientific methods were used or were propagated in determining the affairs, is it something that would receive encouragement?
So let me even break it down and not even talk about departments or even ministries. Let me just start from home, where we are right now.
Yeah.
So yes, the first answer I would say it's something that I would encourage, because most of us are grappling with issues that we are deploying the wrong methods and we expect the right answer. So, for example, where we are currently, we could have, issues relating to ransomware. I've talked about Medusa. Ransomware is one that has terrorized organizations of late. Now, why is this happening? It is, one of the reasons that it could be happening is because we really don't have departments or units within organizations that adequately addressed forensic, Most of what we have in our institutions are ICT, for example. Now, if, Eric, you have an issue with your laptop or you have a problem with your phone, and then I deploy an ICT practitioner vis-a-vis a forensic examiner, their approach to solving your issue would be quite different. One would already be looking at how this thing is going to play out in court, while the other one would be looking at the business side of it. How do I avert it so that there's business continuity? Now, what you run into immediately, of course, is that you then quickly resolve the business side of it, but then you don't really look at the end result, which we would probably get to court. So, to answer you directly, Citi, it is something that would encourage, because at the bottom line, it also, prosper productivity in an organization. Most of these institutions are quite key. So take an example of one of our biggest institutions here, or companies, Safaricom, for example. We wake up tomorrow and we find that they are not able to, you can't access your M-Pesa. You can't call. I think the whole country will come to a standstill. Yeah, in one way or another. And so it is something that I would wish that if it is possible, and I know it is possible, Citi, because other countries have done it, let us start from the humble beginnings as we then bring it, to the country, or at the level of our country. Yeah, because as we speak, the challenges that we face, I think we've mentioned a few of them. Other challenges would be something to do with capacity, stakeholder capacity, development. So when we talk about application of science to law, we have people who would call the stakeholders, the police force, for example, police service, for example. We do have the judicial systems. Now, these are people that you would want, to encourage, invite them into a workshop so that we develop, a capacity, a levelized kind of a standardized operating procedures. But most of the time, these are the challenges that you face, that they don't come. So a matter goes to court, for example, what we had, or rather what we usually have every 5 years with our electoral system. It's a hybrid one, yes? So we never have a problem with the manual. We wake up, we vote. When we revert back to our sitting rooms in the evening, then we have a problem with the electronic, how my mom from the Kisumu West, Kaponja, casted her vote, and how it gets to the Bomas of Kenya. That is where we have a problem. And that is now forensic. Someone needs to come in and tell us how this vote moved from, Kisumu West, Kaponja, to Bomas, and then account for it. When we say then we had someone who was in the servers, the Kamago, you heard about Kamago? Yes, Kamago is in the server. Someone should be able now to pick Kamago from the point of entry to the other sections of the server that he visited, and then tell us whether he has exited or he's still, someone said that he's in the bathroom and he wants to confirm if the client is enjoying the hot shower. So this is what forensic then would come to really talk about.
Let's get deeper into that conversation after we take this break. It's 27 minutes to 8. Hannington Chumba is the director of the Kenya Forensics Examiners. He's here teaching us about forensic examination and the importance of this discipline in everything that we do in life. As we take this break to 8, the conversation continues with Hannington Chumba, Director, Kenya Forensic Examiners. We are talking about forensic exams and how they can be used to better advance access to justice, actually, even because I want to talk about that. When you mentioned the need for all the actors to understand the importance of forensics, then I've got to ask you, are you members of the National Council for the Administration of Justice? Or at least have you engaged with the NCAJ to bring in all those justice sector players, to bring in the forensic examiners in the police service, in the other investigative agencies, let's say the Anti-Corruption Commission, and then the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the judiciary itself?
Yes, Eric, you're right. It's a work in progress, and we have tried to, have all these multi-agency stakeholders, capacity building, because when we talk about, of course, application of science to law, all these people that you've mentioned come in handy. And so it has been our endeavor, day in, day out, to try and bring all these people on board. We have reached out to a number of those institutions that you've talked about. And of course, it can never be, one size fits all. There are those ones who, of course, come, and there are those ones who, don't. But we believe even with such forums like the one we're having today, these people, get to understand the need to have them on board, because I can tell you it's a big challenge when it comes to prosecuting these matters in court. Today, we have just done a survey, and we've come to realize that we have about 4,446 cases that have forensic nature, in them in court. And they are cases that have partly been heard, and those ones that are just about probably to be, have a ruling on them. The problem then becomes to, you ask, why have they, why has that number really grown across the nation? Partly it's because of, someone is waiting for an expert to come and, present that report. And let's take Johansen, for example. We all know how busy the man is. And so that is not the only case he's dealing with right now. As he does what he does at the coastal part of Kenya, there are cases that are waiting for him to, come and testify in court. So that lack of expertise in this field has also, created a challenge, which is backlog of cases in court. And we know justice delayed is justice denied.
So let me ask you, if we are certain that the science of forensics will give the answers that it often looked for, doesn't matter really the fields that you're in, then one would assume that it would be asked to be applied in any situation for which a solution is being sought. For example, if you go to the doctor with a tummy ache and they cannot look at you and say, okay, this is what the problem is, more often than not, they're going to prescribe that you do something else. Go get a scan, do something so that we can see what's going on inside. And that, more often than not, is guaranteed to give us the answer. Is it not?
True.
So, why is it then that science of forensic is not the go-to place when we are looking for answers when it has to do with crime, and whether that be crime of funds embezzlement, crime of murder? Why isn't it the automatic response to say, apply forensics here and let's get an answer before we can go towards adjudication of this case? Why is it not the first place that we go to?
So I would say it's just bad practice. It's just a culture that we are trying to adopt. It's not like people don't know that this is the one-stop shop or the area to run to when you're seeking to get those answers. As City had said, it is, once you apply it correctly, all of us should actually reach to a certain conclusion.
Or is it by design? That because we know that you will get an answer unequivocally, you will find out exactly what happened, then is it not possible that people don't want you to use it because you know you'll get the answer that you're looking for?
That could be part of it, but I don't want to look at it that way. But I would say it's just a culture that we are trying to adopt. People like to have the easier route to each and every solution. But then these routes that we've been talking about, we are saying time is gone. We are not there. We are not going to get, the kind of results that we desire if we use the old tactics in a new wave of crime. So I would probably give, we've interacted so much with other agencies outside Kenya, and when we have these investigative bodies like the FBI, when they come here, when they look at our general area, and then we give them a case study that we have probably, succeeded in. So they want to understand, with the limited resources, how did you then really get to the arrest and probably successfully prosecution? Because in their area, in their environment, they have a lot of things that probably assist them to do that.
They have technology.
Just a credit card would give you the digital footprint from one area to another, where everyone has stepped. So when they come here and then we tell them, we started from a scratch. When someone was reporting this matter, we were just sketching. And that is how we move systematically. And we have this, and we have associated or corroborated this evidence to that and successfully secured a conviction in court. They look at it as a magic. And by the way, if you look at their environment, it is more of magic.
But actually, that happens here. In that you'll find investigators who are able to, they will not use the science, but they will use the knowledge that they have to be able to catch. Just like City, we keep saying here, if police are looking for you, police will find you.
If they want to find you, they will find you.
By end of day today, Nilete City
find you.
hapa, City will be brought.
Atapatikana.
Yes.
And they will have traced you using whatever means that they'll have brought you here. Now the thing is though, Hannington, when in some cases are taken to court, those gaps now start emerging in terms of, all right, so yes, you're able to arrest the person, you're able to trace their movement, but then in some cases you don't have corroborating evidence. Something that actually places CT at the scene of crime and actually shows him doing it, or was he caught with a smoking gun or with a bloody knife, or so how exactly do you prove that he's the one who committed the crime? And that's where the issues now start coming in, which is where forensics would help.
Sure.
The DCI now has a forensics lab. After so many years of start stop, we have a forensics lab. There, imagine, to the best of your knowledge, are we actually equipping now our investigative agencies with, for example, this forensic lab? Does it have the best equipment, or would it still require more? Do you think the investigative agencies need more personnel? Do we need more training on forensics? And then beyond that, do all police officers have some basic training on forensics on how to handle crime scenes?
Right, you're right. There's a lot that then counts into the success of a case. And what we're saying, if you leverage on technology, that work would be lessened and it will be much easier, it will be much more accurate, it will be more testable. Any independent examiner, given the procedure that you followed, should be able to actually reach to the same conclusion. Now, coming back to the lab, and we know, how long it's taken, and finally we thank God it's here. When it comes to training, we have to commend the government. So, public institutions will tell you that they've had some training by the government. And most of the time when you look into their background, you'll find that they are once in government. And so what the industry does, and let me just mention the banking industry, they wait for the trained personnel from...
They poach from government.
Right. Yes, they poach from already trained, from government. And then that is how it goes back. So coming back to, the lab and its operation, right now I know we have like 14.2 million that has been set aside for training, just for training from the forensic lab. We have 7.6 billion that has been put aside for lab operations. And so lab operations, because that is also one very big fundamental area. So we say, for example, we have an issue in Kimana, like Tok. I hear you mention about Kimana most of the time.
Yes.
So something or an incident has been reported to a local police station where we know there's no capacity. The capacity is little. The police officer in Kimana probably would not be able to understand how to acquire, a digital evidence from the server.
Yep.
This is someone who will probably put aside that information and wait for the digital lab to, the forensic lab to come and take it over. So when it comes to operation, it will require an officer to leave Nairobi to go and, get that, confiscate it, or rather acquire it in a forensically sound manner, move with it to the DCI. Once it gets to the DCI, of course, it again queues. It has to join the queue.
Because there are many others from other Kimanas
many
and...
Yes, Kimana, Tamu, wherever. They all converge, and so they have to, queue up. By the time they get to court, already we have delayed, time. Some of these cases are quite sensitive. You go to and confiscate a phone that is basically an M-Pesa phone, for example. Once you have it, it has to queue. Yet from the culprit, or rather from the victim, he is already suffering twice. And those some kind of a thing. And again, now when it comes to equipping, I know the lab has, or rather there is a projection of about 4 billion to properly equip the forensic lab. And those are all
There's some
efforts.
4 billion more to be spent on this lab.
That is according to the statistics. I think this was 2015. I believe probably right now it has been implemented, but I know those are the efforts that have been put in place, trying to make us, get to the world standard.
But Hannington, even as there's a queue, don't you have priorities? And they matters that come to you that perhaps would be considered to be of greater significance than others?
While I will not speak for the lab, but I'll tell you, CT, everyone's case is of a priority,
Yes and no, because if, say, for instance, we are dealing with a case where there are individuals who robbed a bank, okay? Or we are dealing with a case like the NYS one.
Yes.
One is of more significance than the other. Because one involves a bank and money in the bank. The other one involves the entire nation, an entire department, an entire cross-section of individuals. It is infinitely far more important, if you ask me, in terms of its magnitude.
You're right, CT. Then I want to answer it from the example that Eric has just given us. And he says, you keep saying that when the police want you, they will want you, or they get you.
They'll get you.
So you see, nothing gets lost on the digital platform. Yes. And the question would be, then why is it that sometimes it takes long to, get this person? And at times it takes very short to, reach to the culprit.
Yes.
So it all boils down to the priority, as you say. Yeah, there are those cases, for example, I lose a phone, Mulika Mwizi, for example, and this Mulika Mwizi, probably is 500 shillings, isn't it? Yes.
I have no idea how much they cost. But I know what I know is they're not free.
They are not free. Yes. They are not free. And so you then realize, or through your investigation process,
yes,
you find it in Turkana, for example. Yes. And so you need 3 officers to leave Nairobi to Turkana to go and recover that 500 shillings Mulika Mwizi. So at some point you ask yourself, so one officer per diem of probably 15,000 per day, and maybe it could even be more.
Yes.
And he wants to be there for like 5 days, because it's not automatic that once they land in Turkana,
you pick it and then you come back.
No. Once they get to Turkana again, they
have to trace.
Yes. So end of day, these are guys who are going to consume probably more than 150,000.
Yes.
To trace what?
500 bob worth of.
Yeah. So from the public view, this case was not reached, concluded very fast, and these are the one. So that priority then comes in. At some point you even feel like, can I just sinikupe mama? Okay,
so do you think, look, so those are challenges, as humorous as they sound, they're real.
Sure.
It's real. And sometimes you think, okay, 150,000 shillings vis-a-vis 500 bob, which one do you want to do? So then that points me to, do you think that there is, and I can almost hear the answer, but then to be able to explain it from you might be helpful, and so we can look at it better. What kind of loss have we seen whether it's monetary, whether it's resources, other resources, whether it is time, because of the lack of adequate application of forensics.
So true, and so then again it gives me, or rather throws me back to the statistics that we've just collected of late. So we have done our own survey, and one of the things that we have realized that these cases that have forensic nature in them take an average of 3 years, 2 months in court. 3 years, 2 months. That is time lost. And when you look or query why we have, 3 years, 2 months trying to dispense justice on a case, then it comes back to those challenges that we're talking about. We have, we lack budget, we have inadequate resources, we have lack of capacity building from the stakeholders' point of view, and many, many more other things. So we have a lot of time delays when it comes. And now we are talking about cases that have already touched court and partly had. The bigger queue is still on the other side of the investigation. They've not even reached, it's from Kimana, Eric. It's not even come to Nairobi. Yeah, and all these things need to be dispensed within realistic time.
I want to ask about I'm assuming it's an association that brings together Kenya Forensic Examiners. How many are you?
So we are quite a number, and of course, from the stakeholders, I think that is one of the areas that I had you, hinting to ask. So our stakeholders are, law enforcement, and then we have the judicial system. So it's quite a bigger constituency. Then we also have criminologists or students or people who practice criminology.
Okay.
Yes. So we are quite a number. Now, when you come to Kenya Forensics, we have all these areas of forensics that we're talking about. I'm just here to talk more about the digital forensic.
Okay.
But we have people who are, trained experts in document examination, crime scene assessment and evaluation, the DNA, and most of it. Much as I would not say that those other areas are quite, evolved as digital, we are, moving on. The reason why I'm here today, this is one area of forensic that we have realized that has a lot of demand, because, CT, I know you probably have a laptop, you have a phone, you have all this. So you as an individual, you have other various gadgets that have potential digital evidence. But probably it will take you a year to go get some forensic examination on you. But your gadgets could be a daily basis. So end of day, you have a lot of digital forensic examination as a demand, as opposed to human forensic, for example. Or maybe DNA. Has DNA been done on you?
DNA? I wouldn't know.
Has there been a dispute?
I wouldn't know.
We're waiting for the
Or it's
results.
waiting for
the
that
likelihood
time.
exists, but the knowledge hasn't arrived at my doorstep yet. But I'm not ruling out the possibility of it having happened.
Yes, so that's what we're saying.
So how many digital forensic examiners do we have in this country? Do we have a good number?
Yeah, I would probably estimate. I don't want to probably give the precise number because I'm not aware. Because we have people who masquerade as digital forensic experts, and we see them represent us even in that highest level. Then the question should be, are they able to generate a report that would be admissible in court following all the parameters?
So how do we identify the real ones?
So then it boils down to their training. It boils down to the kind of report and the results that it probably ends up with. We say prophet would be known by their what?
Their deeds.
Let me ask the fruits.
I need to ask this question even as we get to the end of the hour. This membership, can I be a member?
It depends on your training.
Well answered. However, Of course, you can be a member. You know, we would want to, raise a lot of awareness so that we are able to invite people like City and Eric and even Do. You don't necessarily have to, you have to start from a point. So maybe the question would be, what kind of training should I, engage into to become a member? We have certifications in CFE, for example, Certified Forensic Examiner. These are trainings that would give you some knowledge on the basics of how to, conduct forensic investigation. And who knows, maybe with that one, you become a very excellent, examiner. Right. And these things are all over. Just get into YouTube and, of course, just get the baby steps, even as you aspire to get the professional training.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hannington, for joining us. You'll come again soon. We talk more about this.
Let me take the opportunity again to thank you very much for the invitation. It came at the very best time when we were talking about very many things in the country, and I hope time will be allocated to me again to come in and probably dissect, because as you've seen, there's a lot that we have not spoken about.
Oh yes, indeed. Hannington Chumba is a director of the Kenya Forensic Examiners. We've been talking about forensic examination and the status of that in Kenya. Good morning, it's 8 a.m.